Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak not in opposition to the intent, and I'll emphasise the intent of this legislation, but in defence of the people and the practical implications it's overlooking. Let me begin by saying this. I agree with the Cook Labor government's desire to make our community safer. There's not a person in this chamber or in my electorate who doesn't want to reduce the risk of violence and ensure firearms are kept out of the hands of those who seek to do harm. And there's been a few interjections before on previous speakers, and as a licensed firearm owner, it's actually offensive that you basically say that, you know, domestic violence, you're basically implying that because you own a firearm, you're into domestic violence, and that's insulting. Well, that's the way it's coming across. Yep. So.
Thank you, members. Minister, you've already been called to order once.
No.
Okay, please continue.
Thank you.
Minister, I will call you to order as well shortly. Please continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. This legislation is more about the optics than the outcomes. But thank you. Thank you. I'll wear that with a badge of honour. It looks tough, it sounds reassuring, but in practice it misses the mark. Oh, I've got a fair idea. As you've heard from my colleagues, there are universal issues with the quality of legislation and how it's being rolled out, but it's simply unworkable. These include excessive requirements, an online portal that doesn't work, compliance hampered by lack of connectivity, no alternative process or support, police that don't have information to answer questions, in some cases, costs of compliant gun cabinets and security systems that add up to over $10,000 per owner.
What's the cost of your life?
Oh,
Minister.
I'm telling you what the cost of the cabinets are. Minister. Well, you can't put a price on the cost of the life. So how many illegal firearms have you removed off the street? No, illegal.
If you're not taking interjections, you need to stop Golden.
It's good banter.
That's all right. If you're happy to do so, then.
All right. Shall I continue? Sorry. The inability to get medical clearance because doctors haven't agreed to do them. People being forced to give up their livelihoods because it's too difficult and expensive to work through the compliance process. People being forced to give up their sports, shooting clubs and social communities because they cannot justify the increased cost of storing the gun. These things combined make it possible for the already law-abiding firearm owners to comply with this new legislation. This legislation is simply unworkable. Did you know how much mental anguish this is causing these law-abiding people? The pressure of wanting to comply, but facing impossible tasks in an impossible time frame. Mental health doesn't just deteriorate overnight. It's worn down day by day through anxiety, confusion, fear of breaking the law, and the weight of being portrayed as a danger to society for simply owning a tool that we have used safely for decades. That is what the Labor government's unworkable legislation is doing to people.
Member for Bateman.
Thank you. This is what the Labor government's unworkable legislation is doing to people. What makes this worse is the growing number of GPs across the state who are either refusing or reluctant to complete the required physical and mental health checks because they fear the consequences to themselves, further delaying, even denying people their lawful right to have a licence. This Labor government can do better than this. These issues are affecting my constituents similarly to how they are affecting the people in the Midwest, Kalamunda, Roe, the Central Wheatbelt, Geraldton, Albany, but they're also affecting the people represented by the members of the Labor government and their electorates and portfolios. Everyone in this place is representing firearms owners. For example, the member for Kimberley, the member for Collie Preston and the Minister for Pilbara, the member for West Swan and Minister for Sports. This topic and these issues are far-reaching, and they affect the people that we all represent across the whole of Western Australia. They affect regional people and people in metropolitan Perth too. So I ask all of you, please listen. And consider what I have to say. I want to highlight the impacts of this poorly thought out legislation from a different angle. I am here today because my job and my commitment is to speak for people who do not always get a hearing in this place. People in towns like Dannup, Byrebrook and Walpole, people who don't use firearms for violence, but because it's part of a practical toolkit for life on the land, something that they need to have but want to avoid using. The list of issues that have already been raised by my colleagues is long and unnecessary and can be avoided. However, there's even more to consider, and that's why I want to raise with you today so that you can make a fully informed decision. The current legislation and its regulation do not target unlicensed gun violence. It's causing extraordinary mental stress to the people trying to comply with the impossible requirements. It removes the tool used for humane euthanasia of animals, and it's reducing pest control and practical conservation efforts across Western Australia, which will ultimately lead to further destruction of our biodiversity and threaten to make extinct native species. So let's start with some facts. According to the Australian Institute of Criminology, in firearm-related homicides across Australia, only 9.4% were committed with a firearm registered to the offender. In contrast, over 90% of firearm-related deaths involved unregistered or illicit firearms, guns held illegally, often acquired through the criminal networks.
Member for Bateman.
In Western Australia, WA police data and union reports suggest that illicit firearms remain a major threat, and many of the most serious incidents involve illegal weapons, not licensed firearms held by recreational shooters, professional shooters and farmers. Absolutely. So why, Deputy Speaker, are we creating more banners, more barriers for the people doing the right thing? Well, I'm trying to highlight.
Member for Bateman, I will call you to order for the second time if you keep interjecting.
Thank you. In my inaugural speech, I said I wanted to build bridges between the city and the country. Today I want to use this platform to help my colleagues on both sides of the aisle understand what gun ownership looks like in rural WA. It's not about fear, it's not about violence, it's about necessity, it's about responsibility. Let me explain what this looks like. A car hits a kangaroo at dusk. The animal's still alive, severely injured on the side of the road. The nearest landowner is called. Someone with the appropriate firearms licence and experience so the animal can be euthanased quickly and humanely. There will be, I'll get to that. We have a severe bushfire that crosses onto grazing property. 50% of the farmers' livestock are burnt, equating to over 1,000 sheep. A team of neighbouring farmers go out and euthanise the animals because it's impossible to save them all.
Okay. Point of orders.
Incessant interruptions, I don't think are appropriate.
What is the point of order? Thank you, and I'll... Sorry, what is the point of order?
I'll come back to it, thanks.
Oh, you come back to it, okay.
I'll come back on the next issue.
Member for Bateman.
Forward situations, hypothetical situations that imply that the current regulations, new regulations, don't allow for what he's suggesting, and it's deliberately misleading the House.
And is that, can you point to the point of order, please?
Need to, Deputy Speaker, but certainly being truthful and not misleading this House is in that book.
Entering debate is not a point of order. I'm not upholding that point of order. Ma'am.
Interjections. Members should be heard without excessive interjections.
It's a debate, but I will caution the member. I will not be upholding that point of order. I will caution the member for Bateman. I will call you to order for the second time. Thank you. Please continue.
I will address that point later. So I'll continue with my hypotheticals. A horse panics and runs through a fence and breaks its leg. It's an excruciating pain. The closest vet is hours away. A firearm is used to end the suffering quickly and humanely, because waiting would mean prolonged agony for the horse. These are not rare occurrences or hypotheticals. These are the realities of regional life. Acting Speaker, I want to share the words of a constituent, someone who, like many in regional WA, hadn't thought too much about firearm reform until it hit home in a deeply personal and practical way. He and his wife run sheep on their property. It's lambing season right now, and like many farmers, they occasionally face the heartbreaking but necessary task of euthanising a lamb or sometimes a ewe that isn't going to survive. He wrote to me and he said, "I don't enjoy it, but I have no alternative. I use a 22, 2 quick shots to the head and end the animal suffering. That's the only reason we've ever had a firearm. But the new licence system is so convoluted, so difficult to navigate, that we've given up. We'll be handing our gun in." Then he asked me, genuinely, not dramatically, am I now expected to slit its throat with a knife and break its neck with my bare hands? Or should I bash its head in with a blunt object? Would I even be allowed to do that under the RSPCA guidelines? And more than that, do you think I even have the mental capacity to bring myself to do that? And finally he said what no one wanted to admit, but too many now feel. Because without a gun, my only other option is to turn my back and let the foxes tear it to bits while it's still alive. This is the reality of what these unworkable regulations are forcing people to struggle with. I'll continue on. I wanted to share a personal experience. I had a cow on my property showing early signs of eye cancer. The abattoirs wouldn't accept the animal in that condition, and allowing her to continue suffering was not an option. I used a high-powered rifle to end her pain quickly and humanely. It broke my heart to have to do that to an animal that I cared for 10 years, but that was my duty as a responsible farmer. But under this legislation, because my property is only 700 acres, or 292 hectares, I would no longer be eligible to own a rifle of the calibre required to humanely euthanise large livestock or a cow this size. You say it's not true. You've got to be a primary producer. Yeah. You need to have over 1,000 acres to hold 2,000 acres for a high-powered rifle to hold that firearm to shoot it with that high calibre. And under this current legislation, the only way I can do that is to get a property letter that someone has. Well, they've got it wrong, because there's a lot of people that will not be able to hold firearms. So I'll continue. Deputy Speaker, this is not about privilege. This is about animal welfare. This is about mental health of people looking after these animals. Pest control isn't a seasonal job in the regions. It's constant. Without effective legal tools to do this, our ecosystems, crops and native species suffer. But here's what's happening now. Professional and recreational shooters who do pest control have long helped manage kangaroo populations are backing away. The uncertainty, cost and red tape is just too much. And what we are seeing as a result, a growing population of kangaroos, leading to more road collisions on regional highways.
Minister.
According to the Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions, WA records thousands of wildlife vehicle collisions annually, most of them involving kangaroos. These are not just tragic for the animals, they are dangerous for drivers. With reduced pest control of kangaroos, these types of incidents are going to increase. In addition, kangaroos in unmanaged numbers cause widespread damage to food crops, destroying yields and increasing economic strain on already pressured farmers. This will make food more expensive and make some food producing operations unviable. More police are being called out to perform euthanasia on injured animals because other licensed shooters need permission to do so. From people in the community.
These constant interjections are not helpful for this debate, and I ask that you ask the Minister to cease making them.
I was just about to do that, so I will not hold that point of order. Please continue.
Thank you. So more police are being called out to perform euthanasia on injured animals because other licensed shooters need permission to do so from shires, from government.
Member for
I can give some
Bateman.
evidence.
Minister.
If you heard the stories. This is...
Members. The member for Central Wheat Belt.
This is people who have contacted me. So if I can finish. This is because discharging a firearm on shire roads, main roads or state forests requires landowners' permission from state and local government before the firearm can be used. So that's why they're backing away.
Minister, please.
Officers are attending to injured wildlife when they should be focused on crime prevention or urgent community matters. We're putting police in the impossible position of being the first responder, legal authority and emotional caretaker. The mental strain on officers now expected to dispatch suffering animals on top of their existing responsibilities is a burden that hasn't been accounted for in this debate. Let me be clear, this is what happens when the policy is made without input from the people who live with the consequences. One of the unintended victims of this legislation will be our native environment. Invasive species like feral cats, foxes, rabbits and pigs are among the greatest threat to Australia's biodiversity. Just last year, the federal government's threatened species strategy confirmed that feral cats alone kill over 1.5 billion native animals annually. That's 1.5 billion. These animals are not being controlled by wishful thinking or paperwork. They're controlled by professional shooters, recreational shooters and landowners. People who need lawful access to firearms to protect the very ecosystems we claim to value. If these new regulations make it harder for the people to operate, we're not just tying their hands, we're giving feral predators free rein. And that, Acting Speaker, is how extinction happens. Does the Labor government really want to be responsible for this unintended consequence? This is about...
The member for Bateman.
This is about giving the people who care for the land the tools they need to do so properly. So I say again, I don't rise to complain, I rise to explain. Gun ownership in rural WA should not be demonised. It should not be politicised, it should be understood. We support safety, we support reform, but we must also support the practical people who use firearms not to harm but for help, for animal welfare, for environmental management, for safety on our roads. This legislation is forgetting those people, and if we're serious about safety, about biodiversity and about fairness, then we need to go back to the drawing board and design a policy that reflects that lived reality of regional WA and that is workable. So in closing, if this legislation remains as it is, the Cook Labor government will have added new complexity to compliance, but not made a dent in crime. It will have limited the tools of professional shooters, recreational shooters and farmers who protect our land, our wildlife and our food security, but not reduce the number of illegal guns that are out on the street. And ultimately, it will contribute to the slow extinction of our native flora and fauna. Not because anyone wanted to, it's not a laughing matter, but because you didn't listen to the people who understand the land best. This is not alarmism, this is science. This is what happens when practical conservation is stifled by politics. I say to every member of this House, this is your moment. You have a choice before you. You can vote to continue down this path, one that penalises the innocent, ignores a criminal and endangers our environment.
Minister, please.
Yeah, I'm running out of time, so. Or you can vote to bring common sense back into the equation, change this legislation and make it workable. I ask you, please, Minister, take it seriously. I call on all members to treat this disallowance motion as a conscious vote. Forget the politics, think of all the people in your electorate. Think of,
Minister, please.
think of young families in farming communities, the volunteers and pest control programs, the animals that will suffer, the regional Australians just trying to do the right thing.
Why don't you think of women escaping domestic violence? Why don't you think of those women?
Minister.
Think about
Member for Bateman.
that.
The member for Bateman.
That is out of line.
No, it's not. It's been proven that farmers that kill themselves.
Members.
Members.
How many points have you lost? You know that's true. You know that.
Members.
Point of order. Standing Order 95 about incessant interruptions, once again being tested.
Members, can we please let the member for Warren Blackwood just finish in silence?
Thank you. This is about your kids when they ask you how so many of our native animals become threatened or extinct. Vote for them, vote for foresight, or prepare to explain to future generations why you voted to destroy our native wildlife. Please support this disallowance. Let's go back to the drawing board and create a workable solution. We are able to do better than this. Let's balance animal welfare, biosecurity and the well-being of people who care for this with some common sense. Thank you.
The member for Albany.